Development Board. I really am surprised there are so many people here, given the fact that we're on the mid of the British summer. It's going to rain next week, so we're trying to take up as little of everyone's time as possible so we can get and enjoy what's left of the sunshine. The first item on the agenda is the evacuation procedure. For those of you who don't know, we are not anticipating any tests of the alarm tonight, so if the alarm does sound, it's likely to be a real event. If the alarm sounds, please leave the building by the nearest safest exit, which is likely to be that door by the public gallery. For any reason we can't use that, please leave the building for the entrance to the Civic Suite, and go to assembly point G on the car park, which is just outside those windows. Please stay there until tonight's proper officer says it is safe to do otherwise. Please don't just go home because, as you will be aware, we have a list of people who are here, which we're required to go to the fire brigade so they can search you out in a standing building. And if you're not at home and the chip shop, fireman might be at risk looking for you. Agenda item number 2 is apologies for members away on official council business. Do we have any apologies?
We do, Beth. We've got apologies from Councillor Reary, sub is Councillor Smith, Councillor Chapman, apologies, and sub is Councillor Jackson. Apologies from Councillor Reary, and sub is Councillor Phillips.
I think you got that slightly wrong. Councillor Wiley? Perhaps?
Right, and Reary.
Yeah. Yeah, Councillor Wiley. Councillor Reary is. Yeah. And that's you.
Sorry, apologies. Long day.
Don't worry about it. I'm here so much now. It's like
So, members, are you all happy with to note that? And to Councillors Smith and Phillips, welcome back, both of you. You attend more meetings than some members of the board, so good to see you again. Agenda item number 3 is disposal of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Does anyone have to declare?
Chair, I'm on Dordon Parish Council and I have an interest in 5E and 5G. It has been notified that planning applications to Dordon Parish Council, but I didn't vote on it or make any decisions.
Thank you very much. Any other items, members? Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is the minutes of the board held on the 3rd of March. Are you all happy that I signed them with an accurate record?
so moved.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 5 is the planning applications, the first of which is application number 91 for land between Rush Lane and Tamworth Road, Kingsbury. Mr. Brown, anything to add to your report?
Just get up the slides, Mr. Chairman. Not very clear, but members should be familiar with this application. Planning permission was granted last year for the site outlined in red there for a mixture of commercial developments. This application is for to remove 2 conditions attached to that planning permission. This report is just for information only. It just introduces the application to the board and a full determination report will be brought at a later date when we've had consultation responses and particularly the responses from the Environmental Health Officer as to 2 conditions, as you will see, relate to noise. That's all I need to add, Mr. Chairman. The application is the report is for information only.
Thank you. Councillor Hayfield.
I move the report be noted.
Thank you. Do a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Phillips. Been moved and seconded for noting. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Agenda item number 214 for land to the northwest of Newton Regis Village Hall. We have 2 speakers on this. The first of which, one speaker, first of which is Mr. David Clark. Mr. Clark, if you take the speaker's chair whilst Mr. Brown introduces his report. Mr. Brown.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just go through the slides. The application site is the rectangular red site there to the northeast of Townsend Close, which is the development here, and the village hall, which you can see here. Ostry Road is Ostry Lane is where the bend is here, which has been referred to. And the proposal, although an outline, there is an illustrative proposal submitted, which, as you can see here, is the 39 houses which are being proposed around a community orchard. And then in terms of access arrangements, this is the revised access proposals which came in after the application was received and in consultation with the Highway Authority, with access onto the outside of the bend, which I showed you on a previous report. Members will be aware of this application was submitted some time ago, and a lot of work's been done with the applicant, with the Highway Authority, between the applicant and the Highway Authority and the lead local authority, in order to overcome technical details. And as you'll see from the report, there is now no longer an objection from either of those two statutory agencies, which brings us therefore back to the principle of the planning application. As you can see, Mr. Chairman, it's recommended for refusal, basically being because it's a significant extension, which we view to be disproportionate to the status of the village, together with the other harms that are identified in the report. I've also circulated some photographs which came in today, which members can see. Will come in. I think the speaker is going to refer to some of them, if not all of them, to show which shows car parking and cars on Main Road and Kings Road, Kings Lane, beg your pardon, and also some flooding in the area. But I'm sure, Mr. Chairman, the speaker will refer to those. Copies should be available for all members in front of you.
Can I just check, members who are going to speak, that you all have a copy of the paper? Yeah. Mr. Clark, welcome to the Council House.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman,
my colleague will now explain the rules on public speaking to you, so we're all in accordance.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes to speak. I'll start the stopwatch when you start speaking. I'll remind you when 2 minutes are over and that you've got 1 minute outside.
Thank you. I will endeavour to keep well within that time. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, my name is David Clark. I'm a resident of Newton Regis, and I am also a parish councillor, something of a new boy. There are 3 areas of concern which the parish council and I share, being location, drainage, and the highways, particularly with reference to traffic. I'll go through those briefly and in order. Location, first of all, as what planning officer has told you, we feel this is a large development in the wrong place as well. It is out of all proportion to the rest of the side of the village. There are plenty of other sites where small-scale development would be possible, much closer to the village centre. I take the village centre as being the area between the pond, the duck pond, the church, and the public house. This is right at the northeasterly extremity of the village, and a huge development. It just seems to us wrong. I'll say no more on that. Drainage. Flooding is a major problem already. I'm astonished to learn that the Drainage Authority believe there's no technical issue, because I believe another resident of me circulated photographs of flooding earlier in the weekend. The problem is water, a main drain runs through the proposal site. It passes through a culvert under Kings Lane, possibly due to development in Kings Lane, or maybe there's been a collapse of said culvert. The culvert is under capacity, resulting in water flooding Kings Lane to the extent that it hasn't yet damaged any property, but it does render Kings Lane impassable when it happens.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you. The major objection is on highway safety grounds. The photographs really say it all. The majority, certainly many of the houses in both that section of Kings Lane, the lower section where people tend to park to take kids to school, also the housing opposite the school in Ostry Lane have no private parking. Therefore, there's a lot of traffic, a lot of cars parked on the road. necessitating one-way traffic at any given time. It's bad all day, but at school opening and closing times, it's dreadful. Those photographs were taken between 8:30 and 10 to 9 this morning, to give an idea of the problem. The traffic generated by 39 more houses, all of which are going to use that stretch of road, because that is the only
3
way.
minutes are up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Members, do you have any questions for our speaker? Councillor Hayfield.
Newton Regis isn't a village I know particularly well, because I'm bottleneck with the borough.
Yeah.
What would be the impact, do you think, of that many houses on the sort of the social cohesion or sustainability of the settlement?
I would say I don't have the experience to be able to answer that question. I did train as a chartered surveyor, but I'm now retired, and I've no way of commenting really on that, other than to say any development is obviously going to help the national situation, and indeed the situation in Warwickshire. We do need more housing, accept that. I'm sure the public house would be delighted with more chimney pots around. Maybe the school would as well, but I suggest that the school would rather not have all the traffic coming past it, which is the only way that the traffic can get to the main motorway network, the A42, M42. It's all got to come along that stretch outside the school and then up Kings Lane.
Any other questions, members? In which case, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Members, any?
Yeah, I just wanted to just put on record really that again we've got a planning application here where County Highways have put no objection in, and so have Warwickshire County Council as the lead local flood authority, where we've got residents who have clearly sent in photos with issues to both. The flooding photo is bad enough. This is just another situation where local residents and local members, local councillors are coming forward with these objections, and there is nothing from highways, from county to protect these residents. There's obviously a flooding issue, there's obviously a highways issue, so I can't support it.
Thank you. Councillor Powell?
Thank you, Chair. Coming to, I think, the colleague, the gentleman mentioned, one thing I have a little bit of concern on as well is in the agenda, it's talked about the school not having capacity. So there again, pressure would be on I think the local county council to bring that forward. So there's a bit of concern even on that particular issue. Thank you.
Councillor Perry?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, I've read the report. I'm in total agreement, and I'll move the recommendation, Chair.
I'll second. Councillor Humphries?
I was going to just say, I know the photographs are very graphic, and they show, what they don't show is when the school bus turns up and when the service bus turns up. It creates quite a lot of chaos actually, and then the children have to offload and unload it. Only I do appreciate it either end of the school day, but it does create problems when everybody else is trying to get to work. So I was going to say, I can't support it either.
Thank you. So I think we've had proposal and seconder for planning application to be refused. Are there any other recommendations, proposals? In which case, can I see all those in favour of refusal?
Making sure I get highways.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Consent is refused. We now move to planning application 113 for Copeland's Cottage, Early Chase Lane and Ansetter. Mr. Brown, anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add. Nothing to add, Mr. Chairman, especially the slides. The site here is quite a large site, as you can see at Early Chase Lane. It's just up in the Manchester. We went from Manchester to Chase Lane, it's on the right-hand side, beyond the quarry and beyond the church centre. It's a large site there, as you can see. The report refers to a previous approval from some time ago, which is extant, which means that this particular building has been started and could be completed, as you can see there. And the application is in fact to replace that on the same footprint. And the proposed new dwelling is that. Although it seems quite tall, Mr. Chairman, you'll see from the report there is reference to ground levels in there, so it would not appear as high as it appears on those particular diagrams. From the lane, it would appear the same height as the original dwelling.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Members, any comments, questions?
Move the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hill,
No, I'll second this.
Councillor Jones.
Second.
So, it's been proposed and seconded that consent be granted. Can I see those in favour? And that's unanimous. We now move to application 546, Wood End Recreation Ground, Johnson Street. Mr. Brown, anything to add?
This was deferred at the last meeting, Mr. Chairman, for a site visit. That site visit has taken place and it's referred back to the board for determination.
Councillor Phillips.
Secondly, Chair, I'll move the recommendation to fell the lonely tree and put it out of its misery. It would be nice, perhaps one day we'll be able to plant trees with guards around them so they don't interfere with houses. It don't seem like developers want to do that.
Absolutely. Councillor Derby.
I don't like cutting down trees like this. But one of the things that convinces me to support this is that we are going to replace that tree with green more. I think developers need to be very aware when they're building anything.
Chairman,
near
sorry
to-
to interrupt there. Could you use your microphone, please? We can't hear
Sorry.
on the side. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
My apologies.
As well. I'm not happy generally in cutting down trees. I'm encouraged by this because we are going to put on 3 more trees to replace it. But I think that developers need to be more mindful of where they are building houses and there are trees already in existence, because I think the trees along here were there before some of the developments along there, some of the houses, some of the extensions that have been built along there, which are now cracking because of the trees that were already there. So it's fairly obvious that if there is a tree there, it's going to grow and it could cause damage if you build too close to it. And I think people forget that when they are putting up plans for new developments. And I think we've got to really push for that to be considered when planning applications come to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to note my irritation at this and really disappointed. Obviously, we have to do it. I know the reasons why. It just stinks of this situation that's already been described. You move into an area because it's beautiful. At the moment, something becomes an inconvenience. You know, we're custodians. You move into a village. You should be a custodian of the way it looks and the feel. You shouldn't be trying to level at future generations. Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, thank you. You're going to be on a rant.
No, you carry on, Councillor Phillips. I agree with you. So,
Yeah, so there's no point. It's just a grumble. Thank you.
thank you. Any other comments, members?
Yes, sir.
I can see the way this is going, but I'm going to vote against. The tree needs a friend.
I think there are a few of us, Councillor Hayfield. Councillor Powell.
Yes, I'm sort of in between here. I mean, I did see the tree. Local members see how poorly it is and it's not looking good. And it's a nice thing is that being granted to remove the tree, I did ask that at least 3 trees be planted in its replacement. So as the local members assured us that, and as you saw at the site visit, it was not a healthy tree. I don't like the idea of cutting it down.
I think he said lonely. Oh,
Yeah.
It is, it could be a tree.
Its friends have been cut down.
Councillor Ridley and Councillor Derby.
Thank you, Chair. I don't like to see our Quercus rover to be taken off at the hill, but yeah, we did go and have a site visit on it, and a lot of the old oak trees that were planted at the same time have met the same demise. And I find it sad that they're not considering sort of root barriers to try and prevent ingress into, buildings. We really do need to give more thought to this, otherwise we'll just have young saplings and we won't have anything over the age of 50 years. Thank you.
Councillor Derby.
Yeah, further to that, the point that I was going to make was that I think we need to insist that when we say there are going to be 3 replacements, we plant them for the size that they are going to be, not the size when they go in, because that does actually look far too close for a mature oak tree.
So, it's been proposed, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I shall vote for this with some regret. But I will be comforted by the knowledge that Councillor Hayfield will undoubtedly be there giving it a hug in its fine moments. But yes, it is a subject.
Anyone else? Yeah, in that case, it's been proposed and seconded that consent be granted for felling. Can I see all those in favour of consent? And those against? 3. The fellows have it. And consent is granted to. We now move to application number 8 for land to the east of and north of Oakland's Dorden. Mr. Mark Fletcher has indicated he'd like to speak, so Mr. Fletcher, if you take the speaker's chair while Mr. Brown introduces his report. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a lot to add. I'm just going to go through the slides for you. This is basically its replacement buildings. The site there is quite large, to the north of Duns Lane, as outlined in red, as you can see there. And the replacement buildings are what you would normally expect to see as agricultural buildings, as you can see here, and the stables as well. The reason it's being referred to you is because there's an objection from the Highway Authority. Now that's quite understandable in the sense that they would be looking at this application afresh and not with any in a planning perspective. And the report indicates what that planning perspective is, in the sense that agricultural buildings are here already. There's an existing access, and therefore, even if these buildings weren't erected or approved tonight, the existing buildings could be used for further agricultural purposes and increase the generation onto that road without recompense to this particular council. So whilst the High Authority's opposition is understood, it's up for this board to put that into a planning perspective, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Fletcher, welcome to the Council House.
Thank you.
My colleague will now explain the rules on public participation.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes from the time you start speaking. I'll start the stop clock. Once you get to 2 minutes, I'll remind you you've got 1 minute outstanding.
Thank you. I'm Mark Fletcher. I'm the applicant for the property. I'm also own the adjoining property. I feel very fortunate living where I live in Dorden. Thank you. Keen to preserve as much as we can, particularly with the plans of future development with the needs we've got. However, currently it's agricultural land. Really keen to keep it as such and use the opportunity to bring some of our livestock there as well. We produced a BNG report which exceeded 27% gain, which we thought was fantastic, and we've bettered that since. Approached the council, very supportive. No objections from the neighbours. Consulted no less than 11 neighbours. With the only request from them, if possible, push the entrance off the lane a little bit, which we've accommodated and done. I'm quite excited to move forward, and as Mr. Brown suggested, no objections, no concerns other than highways.
We've tried to re-engage with them several times, but every time, unfortunately, it's been declined. We've paid planning consultant who firmly agrees as well. We'll reduce the traffic that the very small piece of land previously had as we live in the adjoining property. We've pulled the walls back. We've bettered it in every sense that we could. Quite simply, there's no way or means we could intensify that. So, simple me is struggling to understand the objections at all. I'm probably reaching out as an opportunity, never been here before, to answer any questions or concerns that anyone may have.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions last? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. You can just confirm that the purpose of the land is going to be completely agricultural, and you removing agricultural buildings and installing new ones effectively. It's the same
Absolutely.
purpose.
Yeah, same purpose. There's 3 existing. We don't have a need for 3, so we want to reduce that to 2. They're very dilapidated, the current ones, need some modernisation, as seen by the planning officers, and absolutely retain as agricultural with a possible partial use at some point to bring a few of our horses up there, but that's a maybe as and when.
Just one more. The entrance to the field of Duns Lane, how long has that gate been in existence?
To my knowledge, minimum 30 years now. Minimum. I am aware, should the comments be raised, that at the minute it's a dirt track. I know it's not seen very favourable by local residents when a tractor movement is made, particularly in our lovely damper months, but we've offered as part of the planning application for the hard stand to be permeable paving to stop the ingress, the mud and the runoff into the lane that we all live on, and extend that through the gateway, the entrance into it, which again we've set further back.
Any other questions, members? In which case, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Councillor Biddle?
I get very frustrated by highways. I think we all share some concerns. Mr. Brown says that it's understandable that they've got an objection because they're looking at it afresh. Well, to my mind, I think Mr. Fletcher says the entrance has been there 30 years, but I think it's been there much longer. I think probably going on for 100 years, looking at old maps. There have been no accidents on that lane, no collisions. It's supported from the residents. There's betterment access, so actually the driveway is going to be set further back. So when the tractor and trailer comes in, they don't have to wait in the lane and block any oncoming traffic coming along. They can actually pull off completely off the lane. So I struggle sometimes, to think that there is an objection. As far as I'm concerned, local people are very supportive of it. It's going to remain agricultural. The biodiversity net gain is being increased, and I don't have any objections. I'm quite willing to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Dervick?
Councillor Ridley has just said everything that I was going to say.
You've got a habit of that.
So I'll say it again. Councillor Ridley has just said everything that I was going to raise on that. I am very disappointed to hear that it is not being supported by County Highways. I think that too often things are taken as completely new when there is something already in existence there and we are looking at an improvement. And for that reason, I would like to move the recommendation when we've had the debate.
I can't remember who I saw first, so you're nearer, so Councillor Phillips.
So I wonder what the application the applicant's done to attract Highways' attention. I don't know. It's amazing. I'm more inclined to believe the applicant, the gate has been there, and I think the applicant has made every effort to try and address the concerns of Highways. It's shocking that Highways won't contact him back and work with him. I think it's beholden on us to move forward. We want agricultural land in our area. We don't want these areas turned into housing. and you put 1,000 houses or a couple hundred houses on there, and the highways would say, oh, that road's fine. It's absolutely fine for it. So I think we should make a common sense decision and press ahead with this. Thank you.
Councillor Hayfield?
I haven't done anyone second that yet, but I'll happily second it. I think in this case, the Highways Authority have been misguided in their things, and I think it's a further indication that at times we need our own independent highways advice on things. Because A, that's more timely, and B, they're more likely to go out and actually look at the site and make a practical judgment on site.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, this is the second application that's come before us tonight where there seems to have been a case of the County Council looking at an application afresh, if you will, but not bearing in mind the history and use of the site.
As I said, Mr. Chairman, the Highway Authority will look as a fresh application. It's for us as planning officers and you as planning members to put that into a planning perspective and look at the planning background. Whilst that argument has been put to the highway officers, certainly by Mr. Fletcher, as you've heard, they've not changed their mind, but it's an understandable approach, and it's up for us as the determining authority to give weight to that objection or not give weight to that objection, and that's what we've done in the report, Mr. Chairman.
So, Members, I've had a proposal and a seconder that planning consent be granted. Are there any other recommendations? In which can I see all those in favour of consent? Oh, that's unanimous. Thank you, members. Planning consent is granted. We now move on to application number 451, 170 and 567 for Blackgreaves Farm, Blackgreaves Lane near Marston. We have 3 speakers. The first of whom are Mr. Ian Watts and Millicent McNulty. If you would take the speaker's chair while Mr. Brown introduces his report. I should also say, by the way, if anyone who has had their application dealt with and wishes to leave, you are more than welcome to leave at whatever time is convenient. Mr. Brown, anything to add?
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. These applications have been to you before on more than one occasion, and they're grouped together, as you can see from the report. The reason for that is because there are potential linkages between the Bund and the clubhouse extension. The board will be familiar with the planning issues here. The board, just to remind members, has already resolved that it's minded to grant planning permission for the Bund. And that would become a significant material consideration in respect of the new clubhouse, in as it changes the setting in respect of openness and visual impact on the green belt. And that was recognised in the resolution that you made a couple of meetings ago in respect of the clubhouse. So therefore, the previous approach has been to aim to try and link these through a Section 106 agreement, such that the clubhouse would only start after substantial work on the Bund had taken place. However, the applicant has argued that the 2 developments should proceed together, and that's outlined in the report at paragraph 2.3. Additionally, he's done the applicant's done some further technical work, which shows that even if we front load or he front loads the construction of the Bund, it could possibly take up to 6 years to complete, and there's a table in the report which indicates that. Whether that's the case or not, I think members will understand this is a big Bund, and therefore won't be a quick or a simple operation. And the need to actually proceed with the Bund is quite significant because the main issue here is the noise from the shooting ground. And the reason why the board agreed in principle to support the Bund was that it would mitigate noise emissions. So therefore, we've looked at this again to see if we can bring the Bund further forward in terms of timing. Whilst that resolution to grant planning permission for the Bund was several months ago now, I think it was about 9-10 months ago, we've been working on that 106, but that's a long period of time with no actual work on the ground. And again, as you can see from the report, if planning permission is granted, then it could take another 5 or 6 years. So what we've been doing is looking at a possibility of a different approach. and that is to grant planning permission for the bund straight away. Work can then start on the bund, and as that progresses, there should be progressive noise mitigation and also visual mitigation as the bund is started and is worked through. The bund is not contingent on the clubhouse proposal in our view. They're two separate proposals. The bund is a noise measure. So therefore, let's see as we hear, and the recommendation you can see here is to grant planning permission for an immediate start on that bund. Now, we were looking, Mr. Chairman, at conditions within the 106. Those will have to be transferred across to the planning commission, and that's what's being done in the report in front of you. And also, what we've done is make a recommendation on the bund application that work starts within 12 months. Now, normally, as members will all be aware, the start period for a planning commission is 3 years before it lapses. We want to bring that forward to 12 months. In other words, to make that start. If that is agreed, Mr. Chairman, that leaves the issue of the clubhouse. And so what we're recommending here is that the clubhouse start, or the extensions to the clubhouse, effectively it's a new clubhouse, should only start after there's been substantial completion of the bund. That's the reason why, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation in front of you on recommendation A refers to the 106 being related just to the clubhouse extension in the pavilion. We've looked at that again, Mr. Chairman, and I've revised that recommendation, and members have that in front of them tonight. It's very, very similar, but the thrust of the recommendation has not changed, or the spirit behind the recommendation has not changed. The wording has. Members I've drafted out a different recommendation for application A, and that's in front of you tonight on a separate sheet of paper which you have in front of you. So the recommendation is that planning permission be granted for the clubhouse, subject to, and then there are 3 conditions. The substantial completion of the bund and acoustic fencing, together with the removal of the temporary structures and vehicles, as all to be defined through a completed Section 106 agreement. So the 106 agreement will define what we mean by substantial. Now that could be phasing, it could be height, it could be location. That's something we'll have to look at. Or indeed, Mr. Chairman, all of those issues. The second recommendation there you can see is that draft heads of terms of that agreement are referred back to you as a planning board, so that you can have a look at those particular heads and see how you feel whether they meet your requirements, that there is a substantial completion. And then thirdly, a draft schedule of conditions for consideration by the board. Now those conditions will be based on what you have in front of you under recommendation A, but clearly members may want to have a review of those, assess those in conjunction with planning officers, and particularly in association with what happens with the 106 and the terms of agreement in the 106. So that's a change in recommendation, Mr. Chairman, as said, but the other 2 recommendations in B and C remain. I'll leave it there, Mr. Chairman. We'll come back, either myself or Mr. Collinson, who's been the case officer, will come back if there are any questions later on.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. So I think our first speaker is Mr. Ian Watts, who is on team. Is that right? And then Ms. McNulty, who will be, so if you take the chair. But first off, Mr. Watts, welcome to the Council House.
Good evening, Councillor Simpson.
My colleague will explain the rules on public engagement for your 1.5 minutes.
Thank you.
Good evening, sorry. I'll start the clock when you start. You've got 1.5 minutes to speak. I will remind you at the 1 minute mark. You can start whenever you want.
Over to you, Mr. Watts.
Thank you very much. We oppose the planning application for the enlargement of the shooting club, including the creation of the vehicle passing places in Blackgreaves Lane and the construction of the 10-metre high bund. Documents submitted by the application confirm that based on an annual total of 876,320 shots recorded in 2019, there are at least 2,400 shots fired at the club every single day. This creates a detrimental impact on the health and well-being of local residents and their families. The Chartered Institute of Environmental Health Guidance states that shooting levels of around 65 decibels require substantial reduction in mean levels and shooting hours. While the Bund claims to reduce the noise by 6 decibels, the external noise levels would still reach 79 decibels at the closest receptor, far above acceptable limits for residential areas. An abatement order is already in place against the club, and the council is currently pursuing legal action to address the statutory noise nuisance caused by the shooting club's activities. This further demonstrates the shooting club's unwillingness to deal with the issues effectively. The enlargement of the club's facilities suggests a clear intent to expand operation rather than mitigate the impact of existing activities. Given the club's history of non-compliance, the council's need to take legal action, and the adverse impact these proposals would have on the community, we question why these applications are being recommended for approval when the noise impact will still remain far above legally acceptable levels, and the impact on the area is clearly so significant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Watts, if you don't mind, we'll take questions to both speakers at the end of the session rather than after each time. So,
thank you.
Ms. McNulty, welcome to the Council House. Just for the avoidance of doubt, my colleague will explain the rules on public speaking.
Through you, Chair.
For either of our speaker, and can I just ask you to identify which speaker so we can manage the recording properly? Any questions, members? No? In which case, thank you both very much indeed. Thank you. Members, any comments or questions or proposals? Sorry, Mr.
But there's another speaker.
Oh, of course. My apologies. Our first speaker is Louise Thorne, who is also on Teams. Ms. Thorne, welcome to the Council House. My colleague will also explain the rules on public engagement.
You have 3 minutes to speak. I'll remind you at the 2-minute marker that you've got 1 minute outstanding. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Chair, members of the board. My name is Louise Thorne. I'm a Chartered Town Planner and a Planning Director at Heaton Planning, and I'm the agent for the planning applications, and I speak on behalf of the applicant this evening. The proposed Bund would resolve the long-standing noise issues that have been associated with the site. The site itself has a long-established permitted use as a shooting ground. During the determination of the application, the main concerns have been about the speed at which the Bund can be constructed, and a great deal of discussion has been held with your officers to reach the position that is set out within your officers' recommendations today. This includes long-standing sort of discussions with your legal team to try and resolve the issues regarding the 106 and get us to the stage that we're at now. The proposed conditions would require the commencement of works to construct the Bund within the first 12 months, as you've heard. There would be a requirement for an agreement of a detailed delivery timetable to ensure that the Bund construction progresses and completes as quickly as possible, taking into account logistics of importing the material for construction, the practicalities and availability of material, and the weather conditions. The Bund will require around 145,000 cubic metres of material to construct. In the first year, a minimum of 35,000 cubic metres of material will be brought onto site, followed by a minimum of 25,000 cubic metres each year thereafter. And this has been discussed with your officers to try and get to the highest practical volumes that we can. If the applicant can import more material each year than is predicted, then they will. It is in their interest to do so. It must be appreciated, however, that the construction speed must be balanced against the environmental and amenity impacts. So just to give a couple of examples, 100,000 cubic metres of inert material equates to 8,333 lorry loads per year, or 69 loads per hour over a 5-day week. 25,000 cubic metres equates to 2,083 lorry loads per year, or 17 loads per hour over 5 days a week. The Bund itself will significantly screen the proposed shooting lodge extension, thereby mitigating any visual or spatial harm on the green belt, as well as resolving the noise issues. There will be no increase in traffic as a result of the proposed lodge, and there will be no increase in membership numbers during Bund construction. The hours of operation at the shooting ground are currently restricted by a court-imposed noise abatement notice, which itself limits the number of users. And it is off the back of that court-imposed noise abatement notice that the bund has been agreed. The voluntary benefits from the applicant would also include the maintenance of 6 pathing places within their ownership upon Blackberries Lane to resolve any local traffic issues. And they would also undertake works to improve the drainage to alleviate local flooding issues. I'll be happy to answer any further questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions for our speaker? Just one question from me, if you don't mind. In your comments, you said there were no plans to increase membership during the period of construction of the bund. But does that imply that there is an intent to increase membership after completion of the construction period?
It doesn't mean that there would be no, but at the moment the noise abatement notice controls the hours of operation that the shooting lodge can, so the shooting hours per day and per week, which limits considerably the number of people that can shoot at the site. So whilst that noise abatement notice is in place, that would be the numbers. Once the bund has been completed, obviously that would be something else that would need to be looked at that given point in time, but that would need to be addressed separately.
Thank you. And sorry, a follow-up question, if you don't mind. I am still slightly concerned, I should say, at the amount of time it will take to construct the bund. And I hear all of your comments about the number of lorry movements that may be engaged in constructing it. What is the principal reason? Is it lorry load movements or other reasons, and if so, what are that lead to the 6-year potential period?
There's a number of reasons. The practicalities, really. I know that it has been raised before that obviously locally HS2 are working at a pace on doing different works, but they work under a different regime. They have, as I'm sure you'll understand, very deep pockets and also access to materials. We need to source the materials. We are hopeful that some of the material will come from site. We are hopeful that some will come from surplus HS2 stocks and also from the nearby battery storage. So we're hopeful that we can get more than anticipated early on. But it will be down to the availability of that inert material during the construction period. Also, weather may play a part, and there's also some initial prep works with removing running sand under the site, stabilise, etc. And the overall cost of constructing what is a significantly large bund. So there's a number of things that come into play. I think it's important to point out, though, that from the applicant's point of view, they don't wish to have the noise issues that have been raised this evening by the 2 speakers continuing either. It's within their interest to get this bund constructed and try and resolve the problems for all involved.
Thank you. So forgive me, that's prompted another question. Is there anything you feel that your client could do in addition during this construction period to mitigate the noise impact?
No, we've had the noise assessment work that has been undertaken has shown, and we've looked at this again in the last few weeks. The noise assessment work that has been undertaken has shown that the only way to mitigate the noise to acceptable levels that will be suitable is to construct the bund. Now we can look, as your officers said, we can look at where we start that construction, whether there are certain areas in terms of the phasing that go first. But if we could do anything other than the bund, then that's what we would do. Unfortunately, the bund is the solution, which is why that has been moved forward with the council, and you have the application before you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? In which case, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Members, who'd like to open the discussion? Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Chairman. I just wanted to check my understanding of the recommendations, see if I've got it right in my head. So what we'd be recommending is that the bund starts as soon as possible, straight away, and that the pavilion will not be started until the 106 agreement has been not only agreed but come back to this board. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Recommendation C is that the planning commission be granted the bund.
Yeah.
Recommendations A and B, as you can see, are subject to the requirement of legal agreements. And what I've put circulated this evening is that the draft heads of terms of that agreement come back to this board. So you would not be granting planning permission for the clubhouse or the pavilion tonight if this recommendation follows through.
But we would be granting consent to the bond. Yes. And members, for the avoidance of any doubt, I intend to take a vote on each application independently because I perceive there could be different views. Councillor Holden.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to make a recommendation. I think the bund needs to go up and needs to be started. If it's going to take such a long time, then we might as well get it started even for the residents' sake, and then obviously it can come back to us when it's ready. So I'm happy to move it.
Just to be sure I'm clear, Councillor B, is that a recommendation on all three issues or just on the bund? So that, if you like, that amends recommendation A for the clubhouse. Then we've got recommendation B for the pavilion and C for the bund. Really, you're talking about all three together?
All three on the basis that the bund's done first. That's what that's saying, isn't it?
Yeah. Councillor Hayfield?
Can't pretend this is an application that I like, and I wouldn't like to be living in the immediate vicinity. But I can't see where else we can go on this other than I'll second those three proposals. But I do so with a heavy heart.
Any other comments, members? Councillor Phillips.
Yes, that's Chair. I agree with Councillor Hayfield, as this just said. I mean, because of the history of this place and because of the non-determinations and the problems we've had, it is with a really, well, not heavy heart, but I'm just reluctant to move forward on it, but we know we have to move, and it is reluctant. But yeah, I think we need to make sure that hopefully these recommendations will be carried out, and we'll be able to hold them to it, and there will be some procedure, yes, some moving forward. But I agree with what the sentiment's been said.
Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Chair. 6 years of continued noise still for residents is not palatable. Obviously, the bund, it's gone through some process. It was a court recommendation. Obviously, environmental, and have actually gone through it and said this is a solution for everybody that lives around there. But 6 years for it to achieve what it's supposed to be achieving, it doesn't sit very well for me. But I don't see where else, as a planning board, we can go until we give permission for the bund to be started construction, and like Councillor Hobley says and everybody else, the sooner that bund goes up, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I can only really echo what the other speakers have said with a heavy heart. I think we're in a position where we have to. So yeah, I support as well.
Members, just a comment from me. I mean, I absolutely appreciate what has been said by our speakers as well as yourselves. I am still genuinely surprised that to resolve this issue will take 6 years. I'm just struggling to understand. Now, I get the point that there will be disruption and noise from lorry movements, but I think that disruption and noise is probably what would be welcomed by residents because it will be removing a longer term, bigger problem. So, members, I genuinely take to heart the recommendation that we're only granting consent for the 2 items other than the bund, subject to further details of 106 agreement and the schedule of conditions. So I'm sort of perceiving that A and B is a statement of intent because it's not full consent until we've agreed the other 2 items. And I really would say to the applicant, we're granting consent if it's passed tonight for the bund. And I really would like you to start work on that and as quickly as ever possible, to show the direction of travel and to show your neighbours that you mean to complete it. But, you know, it is, I generally, members, I wish we weren't in this place. Councillor Durwood?
Yeah. Thank you. Like everybody else, I'm extremely unhappy about this situation. And I think we need to make it very clear to the applicant that if we do pass this, we are not giving planning permission for anything but the bund at this point. The other two applications will not get acceptance in the future unless the bund is done first. And I think that is clear from the recommendations here. The bund must be done first before the other work can be done and before we will consider those applications as going forwards. It is going to come back to this board at the point where they are saying that they've done enough work for us to be satisfied with that.
And just for the avoidance, we're talking about the commencement of the bund work.
We are talking about the commencement of bund work and the completion as set out in the 106 agreement that has to be agreed with this board before those planning commissions are considered.
Thank you. Councillor Bell?
Yeah, it was similar to Councillor Dervick's really. It's clear that the 106 agreement has to talk about the substantial completion of the bund. And I just hope that that is well defined when it comes back to us, because then it will be in the owner's interest or the applicant's interest to get that done as quickly as possible, because otherwise the other things that he wishes to build cannot be started. So I would like to see that in the 106 very clearly laid out what substantial means.
Thank you. Any legal guidance and comment? Not at this point. Mr. Brown, anything to add? Members, anyone else wish to speak? So I'm sorry, I am getting old, but I can't remember if I'd seen a proposal. Second. Yes. Proposed and seconded. Can I see all those in favour of the proposal? And those against? That recommendation is carried. So, sorry, I did say I'd take each application separately, but I think the conversation moved on so that we were all at the same pace. So just for the avoidance of that, you're all happy that that's for all three applications together, not just any one of them. Thank you very much. So that's all three are agreed. We now move on to application number 446 for 64 to 66 Long Street. We have three speakers again on this item, the first two of which are Terry Adams and Chris Evans, who are joining us on Teams. So welcome to the meeting, Terry Adams and Chris Evans. Mr. Brown will now introduce his report. Mr. Brown.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'll just go through the slides. These are replicas of what you have on paper copies. The application site is there with the frontage properties onto Long Street, as you can see, and the back area there is where the parking would be. And the parking spaces, the 10 parking spaces there, as you can see. The background and introduction section of the report, I must stress, Mr. Chairman, and to the members, it is a substantial weight here. There is the background situation indicates what the fallback position is. There's lawful use on here for a C2 use, which is as a residential institution. It can also be used without reference back to us as a dwelling house. And the lawful definition of a dwelling house does include up to 6 people unrelated living together as a single household. And also the definition of a small house in multiple occupation does not require a planning application, and that small is less than 6. That's related to the definition of dwelling house. So there could be 6 unrelated people living in this property without the need for any reference to this authority. That could happen. The application here is, as you can see, for additional rooms. That means that over that 6 is 3. So therefore you have to make a decision as to whether that extra 3 would make a material difference in terms of all the impacts that are being considered tonight. Parking has obviously been raised as the most significant issue, but this is a sustainable location. Poleswood and Dordon are one of the top key settlements in the settlement hierarchy, with bus frequencies, bus service frequencies better than a lot of else in the borough, and there is easy access to Birch Coppice, where, as we know from the other HMOs in this village, that lots of employment people will, lots of people will be employed there, and there's pedestrian and cycle access to that as well as the bus services. And there are other services available in Dordon itself. This is one of the most sustainable locations that we have in the borough. And you have to ask yourselves whether the 3 additional people here would make a material difference in terms of the planning impacts that you're talking about. Mr. Chairman, there are some other photographs which have been sent around today from one of the speakers who the objectives, who will no doubt refer to them. And these are the car parking photographs that are on your desks in front of you. And I'll leave the speakers to refer to those, Mr. Chairman, and I'll finish there.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I think our first speaker is Terry Adams. Terry Adams, welcome to the meeting. My colleague will explain the rules on public engagement.
Thank you. Good evening. You have 1.5 minutes to speak. I'll stop you at 1.5 minutes, and then Mr. Evans can start. I'll start the stopping when you start speaking.
Thank you. I'm Terry Adams, current resident of Longstreet. So last night there was a big discussion on the community page about our road. So Longstreet is a very stressful road to live and drive on. Parking is one of the biggest problems in our village. There just isn't the parking. It doesn't exist for the amount of residents that live in and around Longstreet. It just doesn't exist. I've seen the photos that have been taken and reviewed tonight. One is of Derrick Avenue car park. That's for Derrick Avenue residents, nothing to do with Longstreet. And currently today, Longstreet car park was full with no available parking spaces. So where are these cars supposed to go? Also, we currently live in the small area of Longstreet we live on. There is a number of HMOs, which causes an issue with rubbish. I've witnessed an elderly resident cleaning up from those current HMOs, and they've only got a couple of residents in each. If you take some time to walk up and down Longstreet and talk to the residents, our objections aren't the only ones. There is a significant issue with the parking in and around our area. It just doesn't exist for the amount of cars. Thank you.
Your 1.5 minutes is up.
Thank you very much. And as before, we'll take questions from both of you together, if you don't mind. So, Chris Evans, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you.
My colleague will explain to you the reasons on the rules on public engagement.
You have 1.5 minutes to speak, and I'll stop you at 1.5 minutes. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of residents living at numbers 60 to 70 Longstreet. We are the residents directly affected by this planning application. Parking spaces for 10 cars is unrealistic. The owners know full well that current residents already park in the spaces they are proposing, so where will these cars go? The only place for them to go is out onto Longstreet, making it even more congested than it already is. Then what happens when HMO occupants have visitors? Even more cars and even more congestion. The owner's car has already been seen by residents stopped on the double yellow lines blocking the pinch point on the street, so will his tenants be doing the same? Our homes are terraced houses and are very close together, So the huge dormer which has been put on the rear now looks down directly over our gardens, invading personal space and causing us to feel uncomfortable in our homes and gardens. Why not Velux windows in the roof to maintain the privacy of neighbours? Surely this should have been raised before they built it. We are concerned about the amount of noise 10 new residents will bring along with any visitors they have. One of our neighbours who shares a party wall with the property, who works shifts and believes the volume of people next door will hinder his sleep patterns. Another concern we have is drainage. Our home is over or nearly 100 years old. The proposed plan is to include 9 ensuite rooms. The property previously had 2 bathrooms, now have 9. So what will that do to the drainage system other than block it up?
Your 1.5 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, both.
As someone who lives in a terraced house, could you explain to me where you prefer to park your car when you have some items from the shop, or if you bring in a child home? Do you feel that the residents that will be parking on the back would either park their cars on the front to unload their cars, or would they park on the back and slug things all the way down the back? They're talking about how the parking is used and how people really use the parking, please.
Yeah, some people park at the front, unload and then move around the back, I suppose.
Would residents that use the house, do you think, prefer to park on the front where they can unload their cars, or do you think they use those car parking spaces on the back?
Yeah, whatever's convenient, I suppose.
Any other questions, members? In which case, thank you both very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Ray Evans. Mr. Evans, if you take the speaker's chair. Evans, welcome to the Council House. Welcome to our meeting. My colleague will explain the rules on public engagement again.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes to speak. I'll remind you at the 2-minute marker that you've got 1 minute outstanding. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Good evening, everyone. Cutting straight to the chase, the major concern is clearly to do with parking, and in response to this, we are proposing to provide 9 dedicated spaces immediately to the rear of the application properties, together with cycle parking facilities. There are other reasons why we feel that the parking issues are not as great as has been implied. As Mr. Brown said, this is one of the most sustainable locations in the borough, and therefore the need for the residents of the tenants of the highway to use private cars is probably less than in most places. From our research, the average occupancy, car ownership rate of tenants of HIMOs is probably 30 to 40%, suggesting that 3 or 4 parking spaces would be sufficient, although we are proposing 9 plus car parking facilities, plus cycle parking facilities. As was also alluded to by Mr. Brown, there is a history of uses of the property, the care home in particular. It's unlikely, we believe, that the
1 minute remaining.
That the use would the amount of car parking demanded would exceed the that demanded by the previous use. As regards to car parking, there is actually our surveys, multiple surveys indicate parking on Long Street itself, further up the road, and at the Long Street car park and the Derrick Avenue car. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions for our speaker? Councillor Ridley?
Sorry, Mr. Evans, you didn't introduce who.
Oh, sorry, the chair introduced me, but my name is Ray Evans and I'm a town planner.
Right, okay. You're actively.
And I'm acting for Mr. and Mrs. Conn, the applicants.
Thank you. And can you just talk about the 9 dedicated spaces?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. The 9 dedicated spaces directly at the rear of the property. I don't think there are actually 9 at the back, and they're not spaces, are they? It's just an unmade road at the rear. Is that right?
It is generally an unmade area, but I think one of the proposed conditions is that the spaces be clearly marked out and made available prior to the time of use commencing.
Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Chair. I see, again, going on the car parking, because I think that is the major issue with this. These spaces, however, are on land which is leased by the applicant. It's not owned by the applicant with a 15-year lease. How far are they into that 15-year lease? And what are the contingencies if this lease is determined?
The lease will be signed if and when planning permission is granted. So will run then for a period of at least 15 years. The officer's report describes the contingency arrangements, particularly in the form of a condition that use would cease if the car parking spaces, for some reason or other, were unavailable, became unavailable. Again, as Mr. Brown said, the property could then revert to its former use as a care home, or as a larger residential property, or as an HMO for no more than 6 people. In that latter case, without the need for a planning application.
Yeah, so the applicant is aware that there is a significant problem with this, and he's putting parking on leasehold land that he doesn't own. That those are perfectly clear to your client.
He would be using an area under license for car parking for a period of 15 years minimum. I think the fact that the applicant doesn't own the land is not particularly significant, provided the lease is in place.
Councillor Humphries?
If I could say, I'll be boring about parking. You said 9, but the blue areas there are marked at, there's 10 areas there, but there's 22 houses there at the moment. I take it those people living there, you're going to displace people to actually be able to park on the blue areas, I'm assuming, in the areas that are, and will there be allocated areas to the site? So I can see there being a bit of a fracas developing if I was parked there or somebody else was parked there and you turn up and that's my space. How are you going to control that?
The number of spaces we're proposing to lease is 9, not 10.
Okay.
But I didn't think that was particularly pertinent to the argument. The occupants of 64 to 66 would be using, would be entitled to use spaces that we are legally entitled to make available for them under the terms of the lease. I don't think that the applicants or the tenants of 64, 66 should be penalised if residents are using land that isn't in their ownership. They have no right to use.
Councillor Bates.
So I'm going to say thank you very much for that.
Councillor Bates.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to just be clear on something. So I'm understanding that hopefully we're looking, or the applicant will be looking for 15-year minimum lease. But that hasn't been agreed or at all at the moment. That application hasn't even been made or until you get a decision on these. Am I understanding that correctly? Or?
That's not quite right. It has been agreed. It's just not been signed because obviously a sum of money will be paid for the lease, the finalisation of the lease, and that won't obviously get paid. The applicants don't want to pay that until they've got planning permission.
So they've got it agreed in principle. Thank you. Thank you, Jack.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you. Yes, there's just using Google Earth, there are 15 cars parked behind there already. Where are they? What's your prediction? You said you've done surveys and done a bit of study. What's your prediction where there's 15 cars? And that's only just taken during the day, so the residents probably parked there. They're going to be displacing these cars to.
Yeah.
Your best estimate.
Okay, we are. We're not proposing to use all of the parking spaces to the rear of that terrace of properties, just 9. Now, our use of the 9 spaces would be legally authorised. The people, the people who are parking there at the moment, I understand your point, they've got to park somewhere, but there's no indication that there isn't enough room for 9 dedicated spaces to be provided.
Sorry, with all due respect, I don't think I could fit, just probably about fit 9 cars on that with what's parked there now. Yeah, so it's like, I understand I sort of disagree with your analysis, I think is as well. So I don't want to combat it. Also, you've made a referral to a survey to residents that have got cars, haven't got cars. How many is that on residents have cars on the street, who park on the street? You said you had a good survey.
No, on numerous occasions over the last few weeks, we've surveyed the availability of parking in the vicinity of the application properties. And we found that there were spaces available further up Long Street and that there were ample spaces available in the 2 car parks.
So could I take that train of thought forward then? You are proposing a potential, let's just say there's 15 to 20 cars to park back there. What you're saying is those cars will have to park further up the street. That's the point of the argument, is displacing those cars further up the street. And you've highlighted this car park is for those residents. So you want to put where those people park their cars.
We're not proposing that to displace people who park in that rear area from those parking spaces, except for the 9 spaces that we will have legal control over.
I think we'll have to agree to disagree.
Councillor.
Basically, that is the point I was going to make, that what you are saying is that you are going to displace cars from that area so that you can use those parking spaces specifically for those addresses. But that is not a problem because you haven't got any responsibility for that area or parking. And I find that quite disturbing, really, because it is ignoring the problem that we already have in that area of not enough parking, narrow streets, and high traffic levels. And I think that any development there needs to take that into consideration. Yes, you're saying, oh, we'll have these spaces, but the only way that you have demonstrated tonight that you can do that is to move other people's cars out of it, so you're just passing the problem on to the rest of the residents. And the fact that not everybody in that row necessarily has a car hasn't been taken into consideration, that those people might move or they might buy cars, and they are still going to be residents there and they need parking too. So I actually find it very difficult to reconcile allowing that number of residents in that address and creating those parking spaces with no real plan of how it's going to be covered and how it's going to continue after the end of this lease. And I would ask two questions really. One is, how is it going to be policed and organised? And what are you planning to do at the end of that lease?
Okay. In terms of policing and organising, that's a detail that will be worked out even when the planning permission is granted. But it's a condition, a proposed condition of the permission, that the spaces be marked out and they can be reserved for the use of tenants in 64 to 66 by a variety of means, but simplest would probably be a pollard that could be lowered, but by the relevant tenants. The second question you asked was about what's going to happen at the end of 15 years. Well, who knows? None of us can forecast what will happen in 15 years' time, but we would hope that the agreement, the licence, will be continued. There's no reason to suppose it won't be, because based on the nature of that area, I can't see it being developed for any other purpose. It's been made available for unofficially for 20 plus years. But in any case, one of the proposed conditions does say that if the land became unavailable for parking for whatever purpose, the HIMO use would have to cease. But as Mr. Brown pointed out, there is the fallback position that we could have a HIMO there for no more than 6 people without the need for planning permission. We could have a large house there that would accommodate more than 6 people without the need for any provision at all, any parking provision at all. So I think that we're really making the best of quite a difficult job.
Councillor Hinchliffe?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm sure the people of the Long Street would be glad to know that you found some parking there. I mean, I spend many hours sitting there queuing up to get through, and I've looked and I've never seen any. The parking area at the back, is it your intention to make this up to hard standing, or is it just going to remain as it is, ad hoc? I mean, I'm just looking down on my sonny on Google Earth. There's bits and pieces of like passing areas and pulling in areas. There's no designated bits and pieces, just a bit of scrap land to park on. So are you going to be made up into a hard standing or into rows shown on the plan, or is it going to remain as it is?
It's rough ground at the moment, but the nominal parking spaces are pretty clear to see. And the evidence of that is, as has already been mentioned, residents have been parking there for 20 years plus. I think in terms of laying out of car parks, we'd be looking for some visual and environmental reasons. We're not looking to tarmac over this area, but we do enough to make the 9 spaces that, in a sense, belong to 64, 66 clearly visible.
Councillor Hoppy?
Just changing the subject slightly. Thanks, Chair. If I'm unsure if I'm able to ask this question, but I'm going to go for it anyway. If planning permission wasn't granted, would it be a HMO for the 6 people that would be permitted?
Sorry, could you just repeat the question?
So if planning permission wasn't granted this evening, would your client just move ahead and have it as a HMO for the 6 people that would be under permitted?
Yeah, permitted to have it. Well, if planning permission wasn't granted this evening, the applicants would have to consider their options. But again, as is referred to in the report, there are the fallback positions to revert to the use as a care home without dedicated parking, to create a smaller Heimer without dedicated parking, or revert to residential without dedicated parking.
Councillor Farmer?
Thank you, Chairman. First comment is that as I've driven up that particular road on a number of occasions, and I think feel for a lot of the residents there, Mr. Chairman, because it is a nightmare to get around there and through and wavering in and out of traffic and of course, particularly in the mornings, school runs and drive time home, it can be sort of a nightmare. Equally, that's the situation with the parking in the front. But and saying like the 2 Councillor Phillips, I was looking on Google Earth right here as Councillor Owen Phillips was looking, and as I was seeing that on the screen, and I was thinking exactly what Councillor Hayden Phillips said was, is that being marked out like that? I didn't quite hear what you were saying when you were talking about it, because I'm looking down here about the amount of spaces that really aren't there, and it looks like it's a free-for-all at this moment, and they can park just anywhere they want to. So how on earth would you be able to police security and what have you to ensure that there will be some potential 9 spaces for residents of that particular venue or unit, whatever you want to call it, house? But then I also noticed that well, there's an easy way of doing so. We mitigate it by supplying cycle storage at the site. That's almost like, I can't do 9 car parking spaces, well, we'll just stick a store on there for cyclists. If they don't cycle, that kind of defeats the issue. But I'm still like other members that have commented to you, is how do you get around if it isn't your land, and how do you mark it out to say these are solely for numbers 64 to 66? Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Just the easiest answer first. Cycle parking facilities are in addition, not instead of, the dedicated parking spaces. We've been in discussions with the legal owners of that land, and they are prepared to make the 9 parking areas on that plan available for our sole use. How that is done remains to be seen, but it will be, for aesthetic reasons, as I said before, it will be with the minimum of hard engineering. You know, we're not looking to tarmac the area, but the spaces will be numbered to correspond 1 to 9 to correspond to the 9 parking spaces. The 9 highways in the property. And, you know, I understand the point about how do we ensure that these spaces are always available for the legitimate users, as it were. And I think, you know, off the top of my head, I think the simplest way to do that would be a simple bollard that can be lowered and lowered and raised, operated by the retainers.
Councillor Phillips?
So the bollard would be on the back or at the entrance to the car park?
Not on the entrance of the car park, at the face of each parking bay.
That's a significant amount of.
I'm sorry?
That's a significant amount of infrastructure there, isn't it? You have to do the work there. I'm interested in the what happens to the remaining bays that aren't allocated. Are they going to be just up for grabs? What's the point of those?
Yeah.
Because technically you're leasing the land, so what are you going to charge people? You just go free for all?
And we have no proposals at all for the other spaces, other than the 9 that we would be legally leasing off the owners of the land.
Because why are they so spread out? Yeah, so they also put this one house out here, while they all grouped down.
Yes.
Just that's out of interest.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. But that was the. They're all.
To me, that looks like, oh, if I have a guest, I can slip one in next to me. Sort of thing. To me, that's just sort of
Yeah, I think guests.
Like paranoid mind.
Guests would be recommended to park in either of the 2 car parks, which have spaces available at most times.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. I think we've given you
a really good score.
Where's the water?
But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Members, Councillor Ridley, then Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Evans, for being in the hot seat for so long. If you'd like some water, there is some over there. We can get you some.
Okay, thank you.
I feel everybody's supporting the room. Long Street is the most congested road in North Warwickshire. There is no 2 ways about it. The parking on the back of these houses is actually allocated in H4. So tell me, what is the prognosis for that land? Highways that we mentioned earlier and who I love actually says in the report, Warwickshire County Council highways have no objection to the proposal, subject to conditions indicating that the parking spaces should be provided in perpetuity. Well done, Warwickshire County Council highways. So this land is not owned by any of those people in Long Street. I went and spoke to someone Saturday. They pay £108 a year to have a strip of land which is unmade and which they can park a car in. In fact, the residents I spoke to had to dig out a bit of embankments and remove some brambles in order to get their car in. The setup, the layout of that ground at the back, I really, really wish my fellow councillors to see. And I would urge us to be able to have some sort of site visit there so people can actually see it themselves. Long Street is a nightmare and getting worse. And here we go, Dordon Neighbourhood Plan, DNP 13. Indeed, the need for one-off street parking is emphasised within the Dordon Neighbourhood Plan as policy DNP 13. Development proposals in the locations identified on map 12 will be required to demonstrate that residents and visitors parking requirements can be accommodated off-street to facilitate traffic flow and accessibility for service in emergency vehicles. Long Street is getting to be so snarled up that ambulances, fire stations, Nigel in his lemon van delivering, or Fred in the Morrison's van, or whoever, cannot get off it. There's people mounting pavements, pedestrians being put at risk, and if we don't stop and have a look at this problem, it is just going to increase. All of the access to all the villages, Polesworth, Osprey, Newton Regis, Shuffington, wherever, they're not going to be able to get access to it. It's an absolute nightmare. Dordon has nothing against HMOs. We have several HMOs. We have HMOs that don't need planning permission. We have a lot of migrant workers that work at Birch Coppice. It's not a problem. These HMOs are actually sited from 64 to 66, right on the pinch point of Long Street where the cars actually pass. And any more encroachment on that area is just not viable. Derrick Avenue car park is full. That's where all the residents of Derrick Avenue park, surprisingly. Long Street car park serves a doctor's surgery that serves the villages of Polesworth and Dordon, and also serves Long Street Recreation Park. So it's not viable. This is not viable. I understand completely our planning. I understand completely about the fact that we could have 6 people. It was previously a care home, a residential care home with people with disabilities. There were very few cars there. But this needs to be looked at. We need to not be hoodwinked and blinkered into what this land is and promises to the future. If in fact whatever happens with H4, we could look at it and perhaps afford some parking, some proper parking, so that Long Street and other areas around Dordon can actually get up Long Street. We think we can actually progress the traffic flow. That would be great. But like I say, I would love a deferment so that we can take the councillors to actually have a look at the issues. It was great to see that Councillor Bell actually said that she'll never go down Long Street again when she came to open the pump track. It is unbelievable. If you don't transverse it, you have no idea.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify, Councillor, now are you proposing deferment for a slight?
Yes, please, very much so.
Thank you. So normally, when we have a proposal for site visit, members, we cease the conversation and defer and come back to the conversation after the site visit. But I've got a number of speakers who have indicated they wish to speak. I'll just check that you wish to speak, accepting that we're going to have a site visit, or that we will have a vote for a site visit. So first it was Councillor Holby. Do you wish to speak or wait till after site visit?
No, I'd still like to speak, Chair, if that's right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, Councillor Ridley, I know we've got Byron here as well. It's the local members that are the really important opinions on these matters. I hate the word nightmare when we're describing roads. I've never had a nightmare about a road. It's never woken me up in the night. However, I don't visit Long Street that often. And when I have visited Long Street and had to wait for ages to get through, I can imagine if I was doing that every day, it might become something that I was losing sleep over. I understand the feelings about HMOs also. But, you know, as you've said, Councillor Ridley, HMOs, a lot of good comes out of HMOs as well. And I don't think on this occasion that it's an anti-HMO movement that's coming, and it is purely, to be honest, we all know what the road's like. I don't think a site visit's actually completely necessary. We all know what's going on up there. It's, you know, but if that's what you want to propose, I'm happy to second it. As a local member, your opinion is really important.
Councillor Phillips, speak now or after.
I think I'd like to propose that if we do a site visit, we go during a busy time. So well, could we get near it in a busy time? That would be the trick, wouldn't it? So, I'll say, you know, what I'm saying. We go around and look back a bit. I was around there a couple of weeks ago. It's all very chopped out, and we all know that Long Street's busy. It's a parking issue, as we understand. I think the applicant has been a bit fuzzy on the idea that they've done some sort of survey to work out what, and I'd like to know what cars are there actually being parked and where some of these cars are going to go. So we can't just move it off the road. It's silly. And I think going there and actually seeing myself and visually looking at it. I mean, there's a van on Google Earth parked down here, so it could potentially affect someone's business. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hayfield.
I'm not usually in favour of site visits, but I think this will be quite good, except as people have said, well, where we all park, how do you get there, you know? I love Jeff Brown's idea that this site provides easy access to Birch Coppice. I've never found Longstreet offering easy access to anywhere. And I will use the word, I really don't like driving up and down Dordon Longstreet. What gives me a sense of moral dilemma here is it seems the only way the applicants can make this scheme work is for the applicant to get exclusive rights on some notional parking spaces in a fairly rough and ready area and take exclusive use of those and therefore effectively displace people that haven't bought their own exclusive use of that. And it's all very well saying, well, sure, they can park somewhere else. But you know, I've got a real moral problem with that. Because residents clearly are parking there now on a daily basis, albeit fairly randomly, and it just seems, you know, I'm asking myself, and I haven't determined this in my own mind yet, but I'm asking myself whether if we refuse 9 and they have to go to 6, then they wouldn't have to have exclusive use of the car parking. They could take their opportunistic way of parking in their area just like everybody else.
Councillor Derbyshire, then we will have a vote on the site.
Just like to say about this difference between fallback position, which is 6, and the application, which is 9. And the inference is that there is no big difference between 9 and 6. But when you look at it, it's 50% more. So it is not an insignificant difference in the numbers of cars that will have to be parked behind there.
Thank you. So, members, you have had a proposal which has been seconded for a site visit. Can I see those in favour of deferral for a site visit? That's unanimous. Okay. So, thank you very much. We will defer that conversation and come back for a site visit.
If we're all going to go, we have a real problem getting access to it.
I believe I'll probably have a heart attack if you all turn up for a site visit. So, there you go. Members, we now move on to application number 324 for the White Hart Inn, Ridgely, Nuneaton. We have three speakers, the first of which is Mr. John Tiller. Mr. Tiller, if you will take the speaker's chair while Mr. Brown introduces the report. Mr. Brown.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was deferred last time on a number of issues, and I hope the report covers all of those. So just in terms of slides, to remind members, you can see the site there back here, 3 here, and this is the car park which has been referred to, and the access onto Ridge Lane. I'll leave that one up, Mr. Chairman, because that's probably the most useful one. The report goes through those issues. It goes through the 2 policies in the Manchester neighbourhood plan, which were referred to, SD1 and H1. And then it particularly concentrates on the highways issue. And this is the matter that members will just have been discussing in the previous case, most concerned with. From 2.10 in the report up to 2.20, you can see the sequence of events and notes and consultations that we've had and how they've moved on since the original consultation response of some time ago now from our consultants. And that's explained, as I said, in those paragraph numbers. The key thing from that particular sequence is paragraph 220, which says the background in respect to the consultants' report is that there were 2 outstanding measures. That's B and C, which are referred to in paragraph 215. The applicant has come back on that, as you can see, in paragraph 2.21 and 2.22. That went off to the highway consultant, and we've not had anything back from the highway consultant. The county council, on the other hand, has come back in and for the second time raised no objection. So we're in the situation, Mr. Chairman, where the highway authority has not objected, and the consultant has raised some concerns. So therefore, as was discussed at the last planning meeting, we have to advise you as to where to go in that particular issue, on that particular issue. 2.25, we've outlined the policy context here. And that is, the test is, would this lead to an unacceptable impact on road safety? That's the test that you have to apply tonight, in my view. That would be a matter of planning judgment, because you just said you've got no objection from the Highway Authority, but you've got the other issues which we've raised in that sequence of events. 2.27 outlines the evidence that you have in front of you. So your judgment has to be an assessment of that evidence and which way you're going to fall as a result of that judgment. 2.28, I've indicated here that officers consider that there would not be an unacceptable impact on road safety. There may be an impact on road safety, yes. It's a question of whether that is unacceptable. We said that in the report in 2.28. Key to that are the fact that the county councillors twice had no objection. The highway consultant has said, this is in point B of 2.27, the highway consultant agrees that he has no reason to disagree with the findings of the applicant's independently prepared stage 1 road safety audit. Those are quite important matters of evidence, and I would give great weight to those. Section C goes through some other matters which were raised last time, and then section D is the concluding paragraph, 2.34, where I've outlined again the question of whether, in fact, the evidence that you have in front of you amounts to unacceptable impacts. And we're not saying there won't be any impact. The decision you have to make is whether there's a judgment to be made on whether those impacts are unacceptable. And that's the lead on to the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Tiller, welcome back to the council now. Just in case you've forgotten, given the substantial passage of time, my colleague will now explain the rules on public engagement.
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll remind you at the 2-minute marker, and I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Mr. Chairman, in opposing this planning application, I represent the residents of Ridge Lane and Manchester Parish Council. I've made many objections on 2 previous occasions. At the last meeting in March, I showed evidence that this development contravenes a neighbourhood plan by allowing tandem development without direct access, something specifically objected to in the plan. If neighbourhood plans are not to be adhered to, then why do we spend time and money creating them? This application results in only one access route through a car park for 3 dwellings, making the residents, delivery, emergency vehicles and customers to the pub run the gauntlet through this theoretical 4.5 metre wide corridor created by the parked cars. Now, tonight we've heard about highways and their view on matters to do with congestion and dangerous road conditions. But Ridge Lane is a straight road at this site location. It is made up of small dwellings and terraced housing which prohibits off-road parking. Subsequently, there's only one lane down this road and the traffic is only running one way at a time. Visibility for drivers and pedestrians using the lane is a constant concern, and we all know that, even at speeds below the mandatory 30 miles an hour. It is on a bus route and a school bus route. The congestion frequently occurs when buses attempt to navigate past the oncoming traffic, sometimes even mounting a curb. Indeed, there is a bus stop right beside the east-facing car park entrance. The additional new residential traffic will not ease any of these congestion problems. Plan changes to the junction of Ridge Lane and Monks Park Lane towards the Whitehall pub will slow traffic entering the Ridge Lane, and so that's very welcomed, but the central refuge and tighter corners would deter traffic from parking outside the pub.
Yeah, 1 minute, I understand.
In order to accommodate the necessary splay, the car park entrance, 2 places will be lost to accommodate bin storage. So when we get a situation where we need more space in the car park, there will actually be less created by this bin storage and splay. Ridge Lane is a community, and it will not benefit from this proposal. Indeed, residents old and new will be endangered when traversing the car park and crossing the road, the car park entrance. Councillors at the 2 previous planning meetings have constantly voiced concerns, especially after actually visiting the lane and seeing for themselves the potential detrimental effect this dual usage site will have on us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for our speaker? Thank you very much indeed. We now have two speakers, Mr. William Greeley and Mr. George Bales, who will talk to us on Teams. Gentlemen, welcome both of you to the meeting. My colleague will again explain the rules on public engagement.
You each have 1.5 minutes to speak. I'll start the clock on Mr. Bailey to speak and then stop at 1 minute 30 seconds, sorry, and then restart the clock. I'll stop the clock at 1.5 minutes.
Thank you and good evening. Mr. Bales is here today just to answer any questions on a specific highway points that members might have, so isn't intending on presenting as such. But for my part, the application was deferred back in July 2024 and again last month, largely on the highways grounds. Members had asked for the council to instruct an independent highway consultant to review the application. Over the course of the application, the team have worked very hard to address the various issues that have been raised. Members, as a consequence of that, have now been presented with the following: detailed evidence prepared by our highway consultant at TTC, George Bales, who's here today, a stage 1 road safety audit, an amended plan, which allows for turning of delivery vehicles and a widening of the gap between parking bays from 4.5 to 5 metres for a distance of 7.5 metres rear of the highway. This is important since we are not only demonstrating that cars can pass internally, but this is an improvement over the existing situation. Data showing that there have been no accidents within the last 5 years from the junction of Bridge Lane with Birchley Heath Road to some 390 metres to the east, well beyond the site. Confirmation that the applicant is happy to relocate the bus stop if that were deemed necessary, and that can be achieved via a planning condition. No objections from the Highway Authority on multiple occasions. Your own consultants, MEC, noting that the development did not result in severe harm, even with the 2 outstanding queries, and confirmation that the parking numbers for the pub remain unaffected. It's important to stress, which I did stress last month, that 2 points your consultants asked and which members didn't believe that we had responded to last month were that there had been no detailed topo survey to confirm the car park was wide enough to accommodate the 2 rows of parking spaces and the access width of 4.5 metres. And secondly, that no vehicle tracking of the car park had been undertaken to show the car park will operate safely. As I say, both these matters were addressed months ago. Whilst regrettable that your consultants have failed to conclude their work, it is clear that the car park is wide enough to accommodate 2 rows of parking, and we have shown vehicle tracking to work. Given the weight of evidence submitted and assessed by both MEC and the Highway Authority, which includes a road safety audit, we would ask this evening that the board approve this application. And finally, I think for all locals as well as my client, the applicant, I think it's been now to 2 previous boards. I think for everybody's view, whatever happens today, we would ask that a decision is respectfully made tonight. As I say, George Bales is here to answer any specific highways related questions and any wider questions on planning application, things I'm happy to answer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. Members, do you have any questions for the speaker? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to know where you actually got the data from about the amount of accidents that have not occurred on that road, because I can tell you of at least about 30 accidents that have happened there in the last year. May not have all been reported, but it is actually a very dangerous junction. There are always cars parked on that road, making it a very dangerous blind spot for cars pulling out. An additional 8 8 vehicle movements is going to make it extremely dangerous. And I'm quite shocked that you think that this is acceptable.
George, would you mind just answering in terms of the transport statement and where highways engineers get that data from, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, William. Hi, everyone on the committee. Yeah, so that data is recorded by the police. It is accidents that happen, traffic collision accidents that happen on the local highway that is recorded by the police and then filed. So that is accidents that are actually occurring. So the data was reviewed over the 5-year period, which is the standard as expected by Warwickshire County Council Highways, and there were no accidents within that vicinity, and therefore no highway safety issues that the proposals could exacerbate. Also, I think it's important to note that the increase from the development is going to be approximately 12 vehicles a day, broken down over a 24-hour period. So in terms of the impact and relating that back to the unacceptable impact we have to concentrate on today on highway safety, an increase of 12 vehicles over the course of a 24-hour period will be hardly noticeable on the existing levels of traffic on Ridge Lane.
Can I just follow up there? I think I'm not sure that the officers can zoom in on that plan. If they are able to, perhaps zooming in towards the actual site entrance. But I think, yes, clearly we are generating additional traffic, as George has just highlighted. But over the last 2 previous committees, I do think it's been underplayed that there seems to be a concern, or there is a concern clearly locally about the access. The access is lawful. It's used by the pub and by other residents, we believe, who are in agreement, potentially in a formal agreement with the tenant. The access has been found or been seen by residents to not be working as well as what it perhaps could. This proposal actually improves that situation. It adds pedestrian visibility displays, which are shown with the sort of dark grey triangles that don't exist, and car parking spaces. And we don't reduce the car parking spaces, but there's some slight reconfiguration. Those spaces are moved away from the access point. The bus stop itself is, I think it might be shown on that plan as sort of a reddish square on that boundary, but it's basically just to the right-hand side of the access, up against a white-rendered property. You know, whether that is a sensible place to put a bus stop, I mean, that's for others to decide, but nonetheless, that exists, as does the pub car park. If it is an issue, and, you know, the advice that George and TTC have given us, the MEC and the highways, that it's not an issue, but if it is seen as an issue already, we are happy, and we have said on numerous occasions, to move the bus stop, you know, move it further away from the access. But that's not to say that its position at the moment is unsafe, but it seems to be that there's a thought that the existing situation is unsafe. So I think it's important to note that there are improvements here to the existing situation. And then when you look at the relatively limited amount of traffic that's generated over a 24-hour period, I think those benefits need to be given weight. Thank you.
Councillor Hobley.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, George and William, for coming again and answering your questions. My question for you is, have you heard of Jason Dodd? If you haven't heard of Jason Dodd was 40 years old in February 2020 when he was involved in a collision on his bicycle with a van. The driver of the van was arrested on suspicion of dangerous driving. Mr. Dodd died. I've repeatedly sat in these planning meetings as a road safety advocate and stated that this fatality happened, and we're still coming back with there is no fatalities recorded. This is linked on the Warwickshire Police's website where I'm reading it from. There have been fatalities and accidents on that road, and I just want to make that incredibly clear. Thank you.
I mean, clearly it's tragic. You know, there's no bones about that. I don't have access to where that accident occurred, and that's not to downplay, you know, the tragic nature of that accident. As I said in my presentation, the accident data that TTC looked at was from the junction of Ridge Lane with Birchley Heath, going back past the site 390 metres. That accident record data that George referred to over the last 5 years, That's all we as as consultants can access, and that accident wasn't reported within that distance. It evidently, from what you're telling me, did happen on Ridge Lane. It could well have happened 390 meters plus away from our site, and so I think then the question is, we don't know the circumstances behind the accident, and as tragic as that is, does this development exacerbate highway safety? If an accident occurs 500 meters, 400 meters away from an access, we all have to assess whether this development, is culpable of that, or potentially in the future. So, as I say, I don't know where the accident was. We looked at the data over the last 5 years, and there were no accidents reported within that specified distance. I'm afraid that's all I can comment on that. But yes, it is tragic.
Any other questions, members?
Sorry, I was just going to say, if you also considered that, you were looking at the data about the amount of cars that are parked there, but also there's a park that's just a little bit down. So if it's a hot sunny day, you're going to get a lot more cars parked along there. And whether that's been considered, and also when the pub has events, the parking is like 1,000 times worse than what it is anyway. So I don't know whether you've considered all of that as well.
George, would you like to field that?
Yeah, thank you, Will. Yeah, I mean, that is an existing situation that happens anyway in people using and frequenting the pub, parking on Ridge Lane. There's blatantly parking on Ridge Lane for the properties on that. The issue with that is we're not going to be having an impact on that. Will's highlighted that the access, will be improved, and there's not going to be a detrimental impact from the development on the existing parking levels on Ridge Lane. They occur currently, and that's the existing situation.
Gentlemen, no further questions, so thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Members, Councillor Hobley.
I don't want to sound like a broken record. Thank you, Chair. This is clearly another case where it is a nightmare road. And whilst I hate a road being called a nightmare, as I've already said, this is another case where local members, the parish council, local councillors, anyone who frequents the area knows the situation with the road. It's, I'd say it's the second most congested road in North Warwickshire, because I don't want to have an argument with Councillor Ridley. But what my point is that local people are not being listened to. The data is incorrect. This fatality occurred outside the Arden Forest estate, which is, I mean, I don't want to split hairs, but it's definitely within 400 metres of the site. I don't know what happened with that argument. We're in another situation where Highways have said this is a completely safe development, and I'm just not willing to support this. We can talk about it till we're blue in the face, and it's, it's never ending. But Highways again have let the residents of Ridge Lane down.
Councillor Hayfield.
I've been on the planning committee a long time, and I have to say one of the frustrations in the planning committee is it isn't just a case of we all like the application, let's vote for it, or we all don't like the application, let's vote it down. If there's a straightforward vote on this now, I think we'd all vote it down. But the problem is we have to have defendable reasons for turning down a planning application. And all the concerns have been on highways and access and the possible danger. Yet you've got the county council saying they don't see a particular danger. Our own consultants have said they don't see a particular danger. And the danger is if we refuse this and we go for appeal, well, what's the Highways Authority said? What have your own experts said? But you still think that on the basis of local knowledge, it's wrong. We're never going to win that. And we know we're not going to win that. And I just think we've run out of options on this application now. And with huge reluctance, I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Phillips.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I find it difficult to support this. Yeah, I mean, I can understand the argument as Councillor Hayfield, Councillor Hayfield, sorry, said. Yeah, I mean, we all take a notice of the highways. I mean, unlike Long Street, Ridge Lane is not quite yet full, and we could squeeze a bit more onto it probably. But I just think it's mad. I think the site is madness. I just think we talk about the traffic problems going past. But I think, you know, the coming on and off the site, people living on the site, the site functioning is just looks madness to me. I just think it's, as I say, I have got no planning reasons that I can put forward. But I feel that I can't support this. I just think it's, you know, I think it's one of those things that, you know, as I say, you know, residents say this and we know it's an emotional subject. If you're a resident, and we need to cut through some of that. But I think it's one of these sites where you think necessarily, you think, well, somebody would have some common sense somewhere. But unfortunately, the people who have common sense are not backed up by the authorities that are supposed to have common sense. And as I say, without waffling on, I find it difficult to support it, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor David.
I have to agree with comments that have just been made about the suitability of this site. I really believe that it is over-intensification in that area, that there are a lot of issues to do with traffic that are generated by the pub, by the residents, and by the users of the recreational facilities in that area. I used to travel along that road twice every day, and it was a little while ago now, getting on for 10 years. But even then, the number of times that I witnessed very near accidents, very close calls between different vehicles and pedestrians, and vehicles and cyclists, I couldn't possibly put a number to. It was happening all the time. I don't go there very often now, by comparison, but most of the times that I go past that corner, there are problems with the traffic because of the parking, because of the vehicles that have to go through there. It is on a bus route. There are delivery vehicles that use that route as well. Sometimes very big ones that shouldn't really be on that route because of the surrounding lanes. But they do that as a matter of fact. And unless you are there when you see those, they won't show up in any survey. And I'm afraid it's very difficult to come up with proper planning reasons that we can consider. But I really think that one of them should be over-intensification here. And that we should not support this. I won't be supporting this. I've already made my decision on what I've heard tonight, and I will not support this application.
Councillor Jackson.
I just cannot believe that Highways are saying that this is a safe development, and I agree with everything that all the other councillors have said about the concerns. My concern is about the road safety, and if that's a reason why it should be rejected, then that's what I'll stand by, and I do believe that I just cannot vote towards it because of the safety of the residents.
Councillor.
I think I agree with everything that's been said. We are trying to make it flippant. I think what we're falling into, I made a joke about it last time, we're falling into a situation where someone is telling us that up is down and down is up. And I know there's no planning reasons, but I'm not going to sit here and have someone tell me the sky's green. And for some reason,
I have to vote to say it's green. It's positively almost Orwellian. We've always been at war with X. We've never been at war with Y. But what if we say we're at war with Y? It's almost it's bonkers. We all have eyes. We all have common sense. And I'm just going to not vote for this just simply because I'm not going to be told that something is the way it is when I absolutely know it isn't. And that's my reasoning.
Councillor Humphries?
Chair, I've been going backwards and forwards up Ridge Lane over the last week or so, going to Harley and various other places. And I keep looking at that site through from the road, and when I've come from both directions. And only the other day I went past, there were two long wheelbase, high bay, transit type vehicles. One was parked on the left side, reversed in, and the one was reversed on the right side. You couldn't have got a car through the gap. They were separated, so if you went through, you could actually work your way. In fact, there were 3 vans there, but the 2 you could see from the road had closed that gap that I couldn't have got my car through because they were almost up to the back of the walls. And as I say, the front ends of the bonnet ends were sticking right across that 4.5 metres. So I know it's dangerous. You can see it's dangerous. And I'm not able to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think when this was brought to us previously, that be interested to hear from the officers. That the first one I mentioned, I thought was quite bizarre. That at the very top there was a place for bins, and residents that would have to drag their bins up to the top of the road, which I thought in itself was dangerous, driving or walking through a car park and up to the top of the road. And then it's I talked about as well, and I saw even from here, I know it's 3 dwellings, but there's a marquee at the rear, and I do see in the report that yes, there is a marquee at the back, but it's down to the new occupiers should be made aware of its presence when purchasing a new house. But on top of that, I then read there that the environmental health officer has no objection to the words potential impact of noise arising from the public house or its grounds. That gives me great concern too, though I am pleased to see that it says that they would consider putting a gate at the car park entrance to these 3 dwellings. But having said that, Chairman, from the things I've just mentioned here, I agree with the comments that have been made, and I find this incredibly hard to support. And in fact, I won't be supporting it. I think it's dwellings in a wrong place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to wear my badge with pride that Councillor Hobley gave me as a planning geek. So I completely understand where Mr Brown is coming from. I completely sympathise with the developers that this is an infill, but I can see the parish council and the speaker was quite right when he said about the importance of neighbourhood plans and the fact that there shouldn't be an access through another car park onto a road that is very busy and can be a bit dicey, an understatement. So I struggle with this one. I do struggle with the fact that it does go through a car park, a pub car park at that, which is busy, well used. It's not as if it's abandoned. That it does have long wheelbase vans parked in it. That it does have residents parking in it again. So, you know, there are difficulties, and the planning balance Mr Brown always talks about. I feel that there is an unacceptable impact upon road safety for this, for me, despite the fact that our consultant on the highways have said that they have no objections. The highways, to me, they have made several errors that I can see. And certainly in this, I'm not confident in that. And I really would like, I know that we've said about our planning consultant, that was the reason that we didn't go forward with it last month, and we wanted more information. So for me, I can't support it because of the unacceptable impact on road safety. How would we all feel if somebody was to get injured? And I understand completely the applicant's point, and at least it would afford them some sort of decision. We can't dilly-dally around, and it's not fair on them, and it's not fair on the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. So members, we've had a lot of discussion, and I think very valuable contributions. I think it's important that we get a little bit of legal guidance, particularly here as far as road safety is concerned, and particularly with the concerns that members have expressed about their own experience and their own knowledge as to, if you like, if a case can be made that members have validly exercised their obligations in terms of highway safety. We're told in the report in section 227 what the evidence is. Some of it is a negative, that the higher authority has not objected. But the consultant has no reason to disagree. And so some more detailed ones and some information on accidents which members have said in their knowledge and understanding that is incorrect. What is the legal guidance in terms of, is the test of safety being addressed adequately to enable members to determine this application?
It's not black and white. You've got to decide it on the balance of probabilities which you have before you. And the decision must be based on that. So I hear everything you say, that the Highway Authority and our planning, our consultant is satisfied with this. So each application, it's black and white, might be a little bit more white than black. So it's a balance on probability.
Can I just ask a question on that? So if we've had something put in front of us, if we've had something put in front of us that's factually incorrect, like a report from whatever consultant saying, for example, there's been no accidents over this period of time, and there is factual evidence available in the public domain from, you know, a pretty reputable organisation like the police, where do we stand? Where we've been told one thing, but factually it's incorrect.
It's like I said, it's not all black, it's not all white. So there is a balance. So there may not have been any accidents directly outside that site, and hopefully there isn't. So we've got to take a balance on that. Thank you.
I'm not counsel, but I think it's fairly clear that you've brought evidence to the board that there have been accidents, at least one accident. So I think members need to take that into account as well. So members, I fundamentally agree that we need to make a decision. I've had one recommendation, which I don't think has been seconded, that the application is approved. Is there a seconder for that application, that recommendation? So clearly that's not going to find favour. If we move then to the question of refusal, then clearly we have to give reasons for the refusal. Having listened to the debate, I think the issues I've heard from you are non-conformity with the neighbourhood plan. That's partially been addressed by the report. Over-intensification of the site and neighbours' amenity, which is one of our policies, but I can't remember the number. That together, and I can't think of how exactly to phrase this, but members' own experience and evidence of highway safety issues, which the guidance you've just been given is that it's not black nor white, but down to your personal interpretation of the evidence that you've been given. You really need to take all of those in proportion and allocate weight to your decision. Is there anything else from a legal perspective members need to be aware before they make a vote? Mr. Brown, is there anything else you'd like to draw to members' attention?
Only, Mr. Chairman, that if you're going to run with a refusal reason, as you all know, if an appeal is lodged, you have to have evidence of sufficient weight to outweigh the evidence you've seen in the report tonight, because that's the evidence that you have in front of you. If you think there is additional evidence that outweighs what the recommendation says, then I need to know that, so that in fact that can be put in potentially to a reason for refusal, which will stand up to appeal.
Thank you. You have the reasons I just read out, and we'll test those if there's anything else. But you have a record of what I perceive members' concerns are. Members, are there any other items you wish to add in at this stage to the reasons for review? I'm still in the place where I haven't yet seen a seconder for granting consent or even a proposal for refusal. Councillor Fowler?
I thought there was a proposal. I thought wasn't there?
No, not yet. Councillor Alvin?
I'm happy to propose it, that's refused
For the reasons stated.
for the reasons stated. Thank you, Chair.
Seconded by, you second that. So members, we now have that the application is proposed and seconded for refusal for the reasons that we talked about. Being recorded. I see all those in favour of refusal. And for the record, given that it appears to be unanimous, is there any abstentions? One. And any against? Then planning application is refused.
I'll just check. That's never had Brian's own application, so never would we see that.
Thank you, members. That deals, I think, with all the planning applications that we have. So we now move on to agenda item number 6, which is the planning and infrastructure bill. Anything to add to your report, Mr. Brown?
Nothing to add to the report, Mr. Chairman, apart from just drawing attention to two things which members have heard about.
Members will pay attention to Mr. Brown, please, whilst he's addressing you. Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to draw attention to two things. A couple of meetings ago, we looked at the government's proposal for changing the national scheme of delegation for planning committees. That is now in the bill, as you can see, under paragraph 3.3. So therefore, the details of that will be coming out in regulations shortly, if the bill is enacted. And we'll have to look at those when they come in. And secondly, planning fees. Members will see here that the bill allows us to set our own planning application fees. We will undertake that task and look to see how they compare with the national shortfall, the national figures, to see if there's a shortfall, or in fact, if it's what the situation is, whether it's maybe greater, and then report back to you in due course. There are a couple of implications for that, as you can see in the report. They're outlined in 5.12, in the sense that a moment surplus fee income goes towards planning policy making. If in fact the planning fee income is to be ring-fenced to development management, then other funds and other budgeting will have to go from making the local plan. And then also in 5.1.1, clearly I've indicated there, planning application numbers go up and down. And therefore, planning fee income, even if we settle our own, will go up and down. And as we know now, what's budgeted for may not actually be met. So there's going to have to be a system to even that out. I've got nothing else, Mr. Chairman, unless any members have got any particular issues.
Members, any additional comments?
Move the recommendation, Chair.
I second that. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Thanks. We now move to agenda item number 7, submission of the Longleat Neighbourhood Plan for public consultation. Ms. Bell.
I think you'd be pleased to hear
that I haven't got anything to add to the report itself, but you may wish some legal advice on the latest situation. Thank you.
Legal advice on the way.
Through you, Chair. Under Regulation 16, we are at the council as soon as possible after receiving a plan proposed, which includes each of the documents referred to in Regulation 15. A local planning authority must publicise the following on the website in such other manner as they consider is likely to bring a proposal to the attention of people who live, work, or carry on business in the neighbourhood. So, under Regulation 16, we must consider and publish this neighbourhood plan. That's all I've got to say.
So your advice is in line with the recommendation?
It is, yes.
Thank you much. Does anyone else wish to speak, or is there a proposal? Councillor Bates, you're proposing? And a seconder? Councillor Ridley, so it's been proposed and seconded that the Philongley Review Neighbourhood Plan. Well, that's title, is it? But the Philongley Neighbourhood Plan be publicised for a 6-week consultation. I see those in favour. And any against? Any abstentions? That's agreed. Thank you very much.
Well done for sitting through that, sir.
The agenda item date is the approval of the public and press on the basis that the following items may involve more likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by section 12A of the Act. I see proposed and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's carried. Thank you.
Good evening, Andy. What's left of it?
I'm trying.